Every farmer knows a strong season starts long before the planter rolls. At Landis, our agronomists are here to help you choose the right seed for your fields and protect it with acre-edge seed treatments that give your crop a stronger, healthier start. And with flexible financing options, it's easier than ever to plan ahead, manage cash flow, and capture early season savings. Talk with your local Landis agronomist today and plant with confidence.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Here Daily, we chat about expectations in the marketplace for the new year. Jamey Kohake, Senior Risk Manager with Pinion, takes a look at the 2026 grain outlook. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we are going to take a look at the marketplace. And to do so, we have with us Jamey Kohake, the Senior Risk Manager with Pinion. Jamey, thank you so much for joining me today, and hope you had some nice Thanksgiving holidays. But we are heading into a wintry type market trading session, and we want to just take a look at what some expectations are. What are some of your thoughts here as we get started for the month of December and moving into next year?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for having me on again. I think what we're going to be focusing on the next probably 3 to 5 weeks until we get closer to the end of the year January crop report will mostly be demand and weather down in South America. Weekly exports this morning were pretty much mid-range, nothing spectacular, nothing bad, but we are moving a lot of corn pretty much at a record pace as of right now. And we're going to have a record crop, it looks like, down in South America. Maybe have to buy a few acres here for us. You had the estimates are maybe 3 million less corn, 3 million more beans, just pretty much based on the cost of inputs. But really, I think this market is just really choppy right now. Waiting on the soy complex to get more confirmation of sales from China, and also to see how big this crop is down in South America. The beans, it looks great as well.
How are we watching what those commodity numbers look like? With the absence of the USDA for about a month and a half or so, there is a bit of a backup going on. What numbers are you watching for and think folks should be able to continue to trust to give relatively accurate in terms of timeliness data as opposed to maybe from a couple months ago?
No, you're exactly right, and that's a great question because you get all these emails all day long, and it's like, oh, here's a weekly, position report, and oh, it's from October 15th or something like that. It's like,
Right,
even
yeah.
worth opening up the attachment, and of course I do, but really the headline news is the morning export report, and and then the 3 or 4 weather reports. But I don't think we're going to see much out of the USDA that's going to be a market mover until at least the January crop report and the final tally. And I don't know how much accuracy that might have either. But to me, we're probably still a shade bit too high on the yield estimates for both corn and beans. And we'll see if that does get revised lower. But still, I think the only other question is, okay, we lower yields, probably still have a 16 billion corn crop size, and so we're still kind of stuck here with a very comfortable carry out and hoping demand stays record strong.
Record strong demand, is that typically going to be coming from exports, or do you think that there's going to be some domestic demand increase as we look into 2026?
I think mostly on the export front as of right now. Mexico and Colombia bought this morning, and we've got the smallest cattle herd pretty much we've ever seen, and I don't see much expansion there at all in the near term, maybe a year or two out. and we'll maybe continue to see that number, shrink and shrink with the domestic demand. Ethanol numbers still look, decent at times. They haven't completely crashed yet, but it's pretty much what is expected. But it's all on the export front.
Speaking of those ethanol numbers, we were expecting to have some data, some news out of the Environmental Protection Agency last month on what their expectations were for ethanol use in RVOs, renewable volume obligations. What are you expecting when it comes to that information? Are you expecting it to come out soon? Are you expecting it to have a big impact on the market?
I'm not expecting it to have a big impact. I think they will probably release it sometime over the Christmas break when they think, not a lot of people are paying attention. To me, I mean,
Probably, yeah.
yeah, I mean, to me, I don't think they're that, per pro ethanol that much at all. But hopefully they prove me wrong. But to me, I think it'll be a New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve type release.
Since we are focusing then on exports, we have some pretty huge competition with Brazil and new infrastructure that's been put in place over the last 5, 6 years since the Trump administration term one. And we do now have pretty consistent competitors when it comes to that space. So, as we look at that new competitor and we look at continued talks in the Ukraine and Russia war to move towards peace, what are the options for corn producers when they're facing a increasingly competitive market?
That's a great question because, like I said, we got inputs on the corn side at record highs. Assuming we're going to lose a few million acres, then where do you go to? The wheat market, for this guys down south, not pretty much for anybody probably listening to us, but the world wheat market is extremely bearish. We got plenty of supply worldwide. Record crop in Canada, good harvest going on in Australia right now. So the only other option for pretty much our listeners, is the soybean market. And I think that is, as tipsy as anything with China attached to it. Are they going to, actually fall through for once, or do they do it until spring or something? I mean, to me, I don't trust, this, 12 million metric ton purchase, during this marketing year or not. So far, I guess they are following through, but they haven't bought any grain at all this week. The last one was last Friday.
You mentioned input costs being record high, and we are continuing to see a pretty difficult price, even though the numbers have been going up for corn, a difficult price for farmers to make any sort of profit. Can we expect for corn acres to be impacted come next year if there's no huge news deviating from what we know already?
I think so. I think we're probably trading at 95 and 85 right now, corn bean acreage. I think we're probably closer to 91, 92 on corn by the time we flip over into next year and guys start to, get a little more aggressive, of what they want to plant next year. But to me, I mean, there's obviously no fun in farming hoping to break even. Can you make $12 beans work? I mean, I think that'll be a key as well, but I'm not looking for a massive shift, just maybe a couple million acres.
Couple million acres could be a pretty big impact. I think that's what it was when it swapped from
Yeah.
from beans to corn last year. We saw a couple million acres go over to the corn side of things. At What are the options? Are we going to see more movement into soybeans? Because even though we are seeing a little bit of a bump there as well, but I think it's $1 over the last couple months, it's still not super profitable as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're roughly on about a 90 cent rally right now. I'd like to see beans in the teens per se, to, make it really incentive wise to, shift those acres. You got the new crop soybeans at roughly 11.15. I mean, that's nothing to talk about at all. But if you do get trend line yields and we do increase, say, 2 million acres, I mean, you're looking at basis levels probably back in the nines by next fall. So there's just nothing really out there that grabs attention. New crop corn, 465 roughly. I mean, still, it's like, we need another 50 cents on corn and $2 on beans to really grab anybody's attention right now.
When we talk about the grain market, I think it's important to bring up energies as well, not only because naturally corn, ethanol, and biodiesel are a big part of the market, but also because crude oil prices can impact input costs as well as some other input costs. What are you seeing? Because I haven't really spoken about crude oil very often over the last few months or so. What are you looking at in the crude oil market? Are you expecting anything there? Any changes when it comes to that area of the marketplace?
I think we'll continue to kind of grind on lower down to the low 50s. I mean, to me, with this administration in DC, it's drill baby drill every day of the week, and twice on Sundays. And I look for, production to continue to increase, very little imports. And like you're saying, that's still, kind of a wild card per se with the biodiesel and ethanol numbers. I mean, if we crank gas down to whatever $2 nationwide, that puts a crimp, across our ag sector for the ethanol demand. Yeah, we get cheaper fuel, during the tractors and stuff. These ethanol numbers could get a little scary.
It also could get a little bit more difficult for some of the cattle production as well because they like to use some of those DDGs
Yep.
over in that market. What are you looking at when it comes to cattle? Because they have also been an incredibly volatile market over the last few months. And I mean, they closed in the green today, Thursday, December 4th, but closing in the green and closing in the red seem to happen a couple times a week.
Yeah, even a couple times a day, it seems like these ranges in the feeder cattle market are, I mean, just ridiculous. I mean, today was only $6 roughly, and last week at times we're trading double that. A lot of computer trading going on right now. It's a very thinly traded market, cattle and in hogs. We're seeing, like I said before, record tight supplies. The cash markets took off this week, and we had some trades today, $7 to $10 higher than last week in the north and in the south. The south is higher than the north again for very little cattle for the border being closed, and don't see much of that changing maybe until Easter time period roughly, and that's just going to be the port in Arizona, and then gradually open them up going back towards Texas. But there's not much to do here hedge wise either. I mean, some of the break evens are still roughly about $15 below the board. And so we're kind of just hoping here that the fundamentals will continue to push the market higher with record tightness. Demand still staying very, very strong, even at record high prices. The boxes we're still moving. Packers are back making money again as of last week.
Jamey, before I let you go, I want to just take an overview of the entire marketplace and the state of the marketplace. What is your winter thoughts as we head into December, into the holidays, and into the new year? Are there any places you plan on watching, and what are you watching for?
Yeah, so what I'd be watching for mostly, watching this new crop corn, if you get up around that 480 mark, I think I would start to make some sales there. These new crop beans, I'd like them closer to 12 before I do anything there. But the cattle market, I mean, the guys break even is just so wild right now. We're not going to lock in, any type of hedge or anything like that. But that watching China, I think that's going to be very, very pivotal if they continue to follow through with the trade agreement or not with the tariffs. And then two, one thing to kind of think about is bulls getting Thanksgiving, do bears get Christmas? So we'll see if any type of money comes off the table. Like you're saying, we've got some massive rallies in cattle. Beans have rallied 90 cents here since Halloween. So there is some money on the table, and we'll see if that comes up right around Christmas or not.
Jamey Kohake is the Senior Risk Manager with Pinion. Jamey, if folks were interested in getting a hold of you, they liked what they heard, what would be the best way for them to talk to you?
You bet. That's 785-338-4111.
4111. Jamey, thank you so much for joining us on Farm Here Daily. This is Farm Here Daily, and since we were talking markets, let's take a look at the close. And there was some green on the board at the Thursday close. March corn 3 3/4 cents up, 4.47 1/4. May rising 3 3/4 at 4.54 1/2. Soybeans in January 3 3/4 higher at 11.19 1/2, with March an increase of 3 1/4 cents at 11.28 3/4. Soybean meal in January 10 cents a ton in the red, $311.20. March seeing an increase of 30 cents a ton, $316.40. Soybean oil in January, a tenth of a penny weaker at 51.79 a pound. Wheat in March, 2 cents a bushel more, 5.40 and a quarter. May rising 2 cents, 5.47 and a quarter. Hard red winter wheat in March seeing an increase of 4.5 cents at 5.34, with May 4.5 cents as well higher at 5.45 and a quarter. Looking into the livestock market close for Thursday, we are seeing green there as well. December live cattle up $2.50 a hundredweight, $221.45, with February rising $2.10 at $2.24 even. Feeder cattle in January $4.72 a hundredweight more at $336.57. March an increase of $3.92 at $329.72. And lean hogs in December 57 cents a hundredweight up at $81.12, with February rising 85 cents at $81.85 a hundredweight. That is the Thursday market close. This is Farm Your Daily, a Field Forward podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody.